Hello, everybody. My name is David Carter. I'm the Director of Education and Outreach for Charleston Jazz. And we're here today with someone very dear to me, uh, one of my former teachers, still a teacher to me today,
Hmm.
Ms. Jennifer Gossett. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, hi David. Thanks for asking me.
You're awesome. Thank you for being with us at the Academy. Jennifer is a teacher with us at the Jazz Academy, and she also runs her own business doing some stuff with music therapy. So we'll talk about that today, just so the community can be aware of what music therapy is and how we can use that in our community. Uh,
Great.
so I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. Where did you go to school? Tell me about your musical background? What did you study?
Sure. Um, I grew up in a family of musicians on my mom's side of the family. My grandfather and my uncle were both trumpet players. So I grew up from a really young age saying, I want to play the trumpet too. That was my first entrance into being a performer, is joining band, in the sixth grade, playing trumpet all through middle school and high school, and almost immediately knowing that I wanted to be a band director. I had several great female band directors growing up, and I wanted to be just like them. So I went to Furman University in Greenville to get my music ed degree, instrumental music ed, and then I was a band director after that for 14 years here in the Charleston area at a couple of different schools. And that was always, my dream for so long, and I loved doing it. And I still have that passion, for teaching people to play and for what band is about and what it does for students and for adults. But there came a point where I kind of veered off in my career and went a different direction and went into the field of music therapy, which is what I'm actually doing primarily now.
That leads into the next question. What is music therapy? How are you doing this? Can you just tell us a little bit about that, just for someone who may be asking or reading this or watching this for the first time?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll admit that when I went to college the first time, I didn't know what music therapy was myself, and I'm not sure, even if I had, I don't know if that would have been the right time for me to feel that calling and that pull to go that direction in my career. So it became a second career for me. Going back to college, I went to Charleston Southern. There are only two colleges in the state of South Carolina that offer the certification program for music therapy, and thank goodness CSU is right here, and it's one of them. Music therapy is a really wide ranging field, but to try to sum it up, it's basically saying that we're using music because everyone, regardless of your culture, regardless of age, regardless of disabilities of any kind, everyone responds and relates to music and enjoys listening to music and has a reaction and a connection that can be made through music. So we're using that reality to help people in a variety of settings to learn new skills, to recover skills, to improve in various ways that are not musical. So this is not purely educational, teaching someone to sing or to play an instrument, or not even just a musical appreciation type of situation. It's really it's in the medical field, if you want to be precise about it, and we're setting goals for our clients, whether it's someone in the hospital or an elderly person with dementia or Alzheimer's, or a child with autism or Down syndrome, and lots of others as well. We're setting goals for them that are based on what they need to learn, to improve on, to increase, or to maybe decrease something that a behavior or a mental health issue, and using music as our tool to do that,
Hmm.
right? To make that connection and be able to work on those non-musical things through music.
That's a lot. What kind of classes did you take in this field
Mm-hmm.
for music therapy? Like, if somebody were to go, okay, I'm interested in this field, what kind of courses would they take?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of the core musical classes that any music major of any stripe would take. Music theory, music history. You do have to be a primary performer first. You would have your primary musical area. So some people they might be a voice person, primarily a singer, or a piano, or a wind instrument, or a string instrument. So that's in common with any music major of any kind. But then in addition to that, it's going to be a lot of psychology. So I took classes like abnormal psychology, behavior disorders of childhood, those sorts of things. In addition to, we did take anatomy and physiology. Now, we do not claim to be, professional to the level of what a physician or a doctor would be in our knowledge of that, but because there are settings that music therapists work, like in a hospital, where it's important to have a little bit deeper knowledge of why the music may be affecting the person's breathing rate or heart rate, and how to, take care when using the music so that you're not doing harm instead of helping the person. And someone who is not, trained in that knowledge may not have that awareness and could actually, be doing harm without meaning to.
No, what you said makes perfect sense, and I love that there's this integration that's really been happening over the last few years. Mixing music and art and the fine arts with medicine, like similar to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You run a company now with music therapy, or do you work with folks, or how does this work for you? Talk to us about that.
Right. It's a little bit of a combination of those things. And primarily, I'm talking now about what we were doing before COVID-19 and business has changed. I knew coming out of school at CSU that my primary group of people I wanted to work with was children with disabilities, primarily things like autism, Down syndrome, things like that. And there was not a local company or agency or school district or anyone at that point hiring someone to do that kind of work. So I kind of went through the back door into creating my own business, opening my own private practice to, contract with individual families. Okay, I'll come to your house once a week and, do these music therapy sessions for children who already have speech therapy, probably occupational therapy, maybe physical therapy, but without fail, the parents, when they contact me, will say, "Oh, but he loves music," because maybe the child is nonverbal or very limited verbal and communication abilities.
Right.
But when the parents see the child in the presence of music, they're smiling, they're dancing, they see the impact that it has.
Right.
And that brings them to thinking, well, a music therapist, what else could they do? How much further could my child go if they were able to use this music that I already know has a positive effect on them, right? There are a couple of schools, charter schools in the area that I've also made contracts with for going to their schools, again, back before all this, and doing a group session with their, they have self-contained special education classes for the same type of children that I'm already working with, but to do it in a group setting is really powerful. And I wish you could see what that looks like, to be able to, because one of the biggest things that some of these children struggle with is, awareness of others in your environment. And the things that a younger typical child would learn how to share, how to take turns, how you don't just rip a toy out of somebody else's hands because you want it, that is a harder skill for some of these kids to learn. But what we're doing is the perfect way to do it. It's fun, but yet it gives you the perfect opportunity to, all right, I'm going to hand you the maraca. You get to shake it. Oh, your turn's all done. Now we give it to the next one, to practice those skills. But it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like fun time, right? Oh, Miss Jen comes and she brings all the instruments and we have so much fun in class. But guess what? And the teachers will say, they understand. They can see, wow, that child never shares with their neighbor, never gives something up willingly. And look, they just did it, during music. So it's really been a combination of individual work with families as well as group settings in schools is what I have, created my business model out of, and hope to soon be able to do that kind of thing again.
Hope so too. How do people find you if they want to learn more about what you do or just talk with you about music therapy? I see a sign behind you. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Right,
Go ahead.
So right now, I'm in the midst of creating a website, so it's not up yet, or otherwise I'd share that. But I do have my business Facebook page, which is what the sign is about, and the business is called Noteworthy Music Therapy. So if you just search for that on Facebook, it has a way to message me there. You can post, your question. You can see, I usually use that page to share, informational articles about just the field in general, as well as the things that I'm doing and, new updates about any changes that might be going on in the practice, especially right now we're really not resuming the in-person work yet, but I'm doing some things through Zoom like this, and to, offer, if there are parents who are interested in trying that, even to start right now through Zoom, they can contact me there.
I know that music therapy. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
Sure. Yeah.
sharing that.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking about music therapy and how you sort of focused um, your specialty with students with disabilities. Is that sort of your emphasis? What are
Hmm.
some of the other emphases? Like, what are some of the other routes that
Sure.
people can take? I guess you could work with physical therapy, or like folks maybe older that are trying to get some motion back, or like what
Right.
are some other options?
I would say all of those. Let me just pick out a couple, I guess, to give you a short couple of examples. There are music therapists that are employed by certain hospitals. And in this area right now, MUSE is the one that has they call it Arts in Healing. So they have both art and music therapy there. But what comes to mind in thinking about what they do, in particular as it relates to children, is what's called procedural support. All right, so let's give an example. Think about a child who's in the hospital maybe for cancer treatment, or inpatient, something that's kind of serious and scary. There's probably a lot of sticking to draw blood or to place an IV in their arm, and it's scary and it doesn't feel good, and it's challenging for the staff there to get a child to cooperate for that. They may call the music therapist and say, all right, we got to place an IV on this child, or this child has a cast on their arm that we need to remove, and you know how to do that. They use that saw that like spins and goes bzzz, and it sounds horrifying. We've got to do that on this arm. Music therapist, can you please come and stand on this side of the child and engage them and sing a song, and maybe let the child hold an instrument, right? And just basically distract them, keep them involved in something that keeps them from even knowing what's going on over here, and it makes it so much easier and less painful and less traumatic for the child, right? Another one that comes to mind is working with, senior adults, especially those with, some form of dementia or Alzheimer's, right? And I've seen this up close with relatives in my own family before I even went into this as a field for music therapy, that when the memory, is starting to deteriorate, the fact that where music memories are stored in your brain is a different part of the brain than the ability to speak or the ability to recall a person or a situation or a memory from the past that you've done. Then, you might be going to visit your grandmother and they might not necessarily remember exactly who you are. But through music, we can access memories that they can recall. We can bring up a song that was, the song that was sung at their wedding 50 years ago, or the song they danced to at the prom, or, those sorts of things where they can remember those. And even if they've reached the point with dementia where they're just limited verbal at all, they just really don't talk and communicate, when that music comes on and they remember, or a hymn they grew up singing in church, oh my goodness, you start Amazing Grace, they're going to be singing it. And they're going to remember all the words, and they're going to engage with you, and it's going to, on a temporary basis, I wish it would be permanent, but on a temporary basis, it's going to bring them kind of back out of that shell and allow them to access the ability to engage with someone and talk and have some positive interaction. In a way, it's almost as much for the family members as it is for that, loved one with dementia, because the family members will say, I felt like I had her back for a few minutes. We could really see how she used to be, and we could have a positive moment with her when we don't have those very often in some of the later stages. So it's so wide ranging that really that's the reason I think that we end up specializing in an area, because I could go to an assisted living and I would be thrilled to, play music with those residents in the nursing home or in the hospital. But I almost feel like if a music therapist who is specializing in that, right, who has that amount of experience in those type of clients, it's almost as if, I can teach a beginner student how to play the saxophone. The saxophone is not my primary instrument. If you really want to get good at the saxophone, you need a saxophone player, right? So the same thing, you're going to want a music therapist whose focus is
That area.
on that particular area. And there's just so many of them that it's hard to, for one person to be an expert in all of them.
The power of music is amazing. Just listening to what you just said, all those different scenarios and the impact of music across all ages of life. So
Right.
just hearing you
Exactly.
talk about that, and you've made my awareness grow so much for music therapy, and I'm really excited to share this with our community and folks. And so thank you for sharing
Oh,
that
me
with us. And
too. Thank you.
uh, it last question. Well, actually, I have two more questions.
Okay.
What's some music advice that you would give an up and coming student, whether they're in middle school, high school? Just it could be general advice, just advice
Hmm.
in general.
I think, I mean, again, so many examples come to mind, but I feel like the more exposure you can give yourself, as if you're someone who wants to continue to grow and learn and improve as a musician, then listen to as much as you can, meet as many musicians as you can, and go see them and talk to them, pick their brain if they'll let you. But even if it's someone who's famous, that you can't meet personally, just as much as you can expose yourself to listening and putting yourself in the perspective of, okay, I know that I'm the student. I know that I have a lot of growth still to do. So I'm going to give myself as many examples as I possibly can to learn from, so that then I know better what I'm aiming for, right? And each person, let's do saxophone. If you're a saxophone player, you can listen to tons of professional saxophone players, past and present, and it feels like they all would have something different that you could glean from that.
Oh yeah,
Say, well, I love Charlie Parker, so I'll listen to him, and that was enough. Well, no, there's plenty of other ones that you can also learn something different from, and might spark your interest in a different aspect of playing, or a different style,
for
or a
sure.
different direction you want to go, that you wouldn't have even known existed unless you had, opened yourself up to listening to it, right?
I love it.
And
No,
now
that's
with,
good.
I'm thinking about when I was growing up. Okay, so I'm going to have to go to the record store and buy an album or buy a CD of the professionals I wanted to hear. And if I'd never heard of them, I wasn't going to buy their stuff because I didn't know what it was. But the sky is the limit now. Just go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on, you have access to anything you could possibly want. There's probably some bad stuff out there that, you could access to. But
Oh yeah.
so many resources for free that you can get, that there's no excuse to not, expose yourself to as much as you can possibly
I
listen to.
love it. I love it. Use technology to your advantage and just keep
Yes.
listening. And when you think
Mm-hmm.
you've listened enough, find somebody different or keep listening more to that person. Just keep listening. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Last question. During these COVID times, a lot of us are stuck inside and we're slowly starting to get back out. But if you could
Right.
travel anywhere in the world,
Oh, good.
where would you go?
Woo. Oh my gosh, anywhere. I don't know. I have always been a big fan of everything British. I watch all the British TV shows and movies, and, British accent. I just listen to them talk all day. And so I'd always had a dream to go to England. And we actually did, 2016. Got to go on a trip over there and visited London, visited Stonehenge, and a lot of stuff. But I feel like we just scratched the surface. So even though I've been there once before, I would want to go back again, because there was never enough time to go everywhere you want and see everything you want. And, I mean, we could expand the whole UK. I'd go to Scotland, I'd go to Ireland, I'd go to Wales,
Anywhere, right?
any of that stuff. I don't know why that has always been, when so many people would say Jamaica, Cancun, I'm going to the tropical places, and that's fun, but I don't know. I'm always drawn to wanting to go to the UK for some reason. So if we could, if traveling was safe, then yeah, that's probably what I would choose.
I hear that. Well, that sounds fun. I heard the UK is beautiful. Well, England specifically.
Mm-hmm. Love
I
it.
haven't been, but that sounds beautiful. What would you do? What would you do? Would you just relax? Would you hang out? What would you do?
We spent most of the time in the trip in the city of London itself. So, you can't go in the palaces, but we went and saw the palaces and the Tower of London and, the historical stuff right there in the city. I think I would like to go to more out from the city areas and see, some more of the countryside and smaller towns and, the rural places. Just because the topography of it, for lack of a better word, is just so pretty and looks so different than it does here. There's so many places around here that you could go, but it looks pretty much just like it looks at home. But it doesn't there. I feel like it looks very different. And it's a lot cooler than it is here, too, temperature-wise.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's nice. I mean, we were cold. When we went to Stonehenge, we had rain jackets on, and it was cloudy, and it was windy and cold. But that was all right, because it was the middle of July. So here at home, it's probably 95 degrees. So, yeah.
Well, I'm. I hope it stays cool here so we can.
I hope so, too.
Well, everybody, thank you for watching today. Again, we were here with Jennifer Gossett, and she former band director, my former band director. I'm proud to say that.
Thank
But
you.
and now running a music therapy company called the Noteworthy Music Therapy Company. You can find them on Facebook. And again, thank you, Jennifer, for being with us. And we look forward to hearing. Thank you for talking to us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.